Hi guys, back with a new video today. Today I'm back with our beloved series Real Estate Real Katahalu with incident number 5, story number 5. If you have not followed this series, I request you go and watch our previous videos. I'm sure you will love it and learn a lot of valuable things from it. Basically, in this series, we are sharing real incidents which happen in real estate, both positive and negative, and what best we can learn from it, right? The best practices. So this video is going to be really interesting. Story number 5, incident number 5. So watch till the end. I'm sure you will learn a lot from it. So let's get started. So this story came to my notice few months ago, I think around 3 months ago. Okay, this story is of an NRI who was supposed to invest in one of our projects. He came to our office, visited the project, he liked the project, and he wanted to buy that property, which we showed him. But the source of funding for this property was from an apartment which he was selling in Manikonda. So he acquired this apartment, I think 7-8 years ago, and he was trying to sell that apartment. Already the token advance was given from the buyer, and the registration was supposed to happen in next few days. And after the transaction, he was supposed to buy our property because of some long-term capital gains issue, right? And he was very clear that he wants to, whatever money, extra money, he wanted some money to use, and rest of the extra money which he has, he'll invest in our property. He was very clear with it, and that's how the transaction was supposed to go. But he waited for the registration. That registration didn't happen. He flew back to US. Now, before that also, he changed his tickets to US couple of times, assuming the transaction will happen. But somehow the transaction didn't happen. He went back to the US. Now, I was not aware of what was happening, why the transaction was not happening, but he told me that, Saurabh, I'll come again after 2 months. And when I come again, then I'll purchase your property. Okay. Now, he came back after 2 months. I was in touch with him, consistently in touch with him. Now, he came back after 2 months, and that's when I asked him, what is happening with your property, apartment property? Why it is getting delayed? Now, that's when he started sharing some facts. So, basically, what happened was he bought this apartment, which is in Manikonda. It's a 3 BHK. It was in a semi-gated community. Okay, and resale price in that area going on is around 8,000, 8,500 rupees per square feet. It's in a prime area, right? Now, he was trying to sell this property at a very cheap price. That's when I got to know when I spoke to him. He was selling this property approximately at 4,500 rupees per square feet, almost 3,000 rupees per square feet less than the actual market price. And I asked him, why are you selling so cheap? Then he told to me, Saurabh, actually this apartment which I bought, later on what happened, that whole of the survey number in which the apartment lies has fallen in prohibited zone. Someone has put a case claiming that some farmer, long back who sold the property, put a case that I have share in this property. And because of that, the whole of the survey number went in litigation. Right now, because of that, the registration was not happening even for their own apartment. Now, he was struggling to get it registered, and because he is in the US, he comes to India once in a while, so didn't have much contacts to get this sorted. So now, through his mother, he got introduced to one of an agent who happened to be a long distant relative, and he handed over this task of getting this registration done to that particular person who is a long distant relative. Okay, and he found a buyer for him, and the buyer was supposed to pay him 4,500 rupees per square feet, approximately 77 lakhs to him. Okay, and that was the transaction. He was selling at a loss, but he was okay for it because he wanted to get rid of this property because it was causing a lot of tension and a lot of expenses in terms of maintenance for him, and he was ready to sell it off. So he came second time to India, and even second time the registration couldn't happen because I know real estate and I was curious why this is getting delayed. So basically, it was a straightforward thing. You have two options. Option number one, manage the sub-registrar office. Okay. Or second option is get an NOC from the court saying that this particular apartment is not in prohibited list. And actually, it was not, because this case was supposed to be for a different property in the same survey number. And because this apartment falls in the same survey number, they were not registering. SR was not registering. So they need an NOC from the court, or maybe the sub-registrar should be convinced to register it. So, and it's an easy task, not very hard to do. Could have been done in a weeks or months time. Already 3-4 months were delayed. Even the second time, the property registration didn't happen. Did 2 times back and forth. He went to US, came to India. Now this is the third time he came to India. This time he came when the agent, who happens to be his distant relative, told him that this time confirmed registration is happening at this particular date. Okay. Now, with that, he came to India. I met him physical discussion. We discussed what was happening, and something shocking got revealed in that discussion. Okay. Now, this came to his notice that after all this at a dead end where the registration was supposed to happen, one more clause, the bank, because the person who was the buyer who was buying this apartment, okay, he wanted to buy in complete loan, just 20% or 10% down payment, rest of it all loan he wanted to buy. And when you buy an NRI property, because it was a joint property between his this NRI and his wife was in the US, so they had an agreement. Okay, general power of attorney they had, and this was an NRI property because that address was in US. Okay, now the clause is when you buy a property from an NRI, by default 20% TDS has to be deducted. 20 to 30, somewhere in between, has to be deducted. Okay, and this is a mandate. You have to deduct it. Okay, and show it to the SRO. Only then registration will happen. Especially with NRI properties, this is the case. Now, this was another shocking for him because already a property which is worth 7,500 per square feet, he was selling approximately at 4,500 per square feet because of the small litigation of prohibited. And now 20% is also getting deducted. So basically, he was not even getting 50 lakh rupees. 50 lakhs to 55 lakhs is what he was getting approximately. And that was a concern for him because expensive property, giving at lesser price, and then TDS is also deducted. Okay, now TDS can be claimed back at after 1 year. That's there, but upfront you're not getting that money. Another shock for him, and that discussion also happened. I spoke to my CA. There was an official route to handle it, but then I asked him, see, this property is undervalued. You are undervaluing the property. You're selling at a lesser price. Now TDS is also getting deducted. Why don't you ask the buyer who is buying from you to pay you in cash certain portion? Okay, so that you can save a little TDS. But even that buyer was not agreeing for it because he wanted to be safe. He wanted to take it from the bank, take it on loan completely. Now, this was a complete mess. Then I told him, see, you speak to your agent who happens to be your distant family relative and understand what is happening. Okay, and next day he reaches out to me saying that agreement of sale was signed. In that, the price mentioned was almost of 5,500 per square feet, almost around 17 lakh rupees extra is mentioned, and that 17 lakhs extra is supposed to go to this agent. Now, this was further shocking for me, okay, and even for him. Okay, now he questioned that agent that why you are charging 17 lakhs extra. Now he said that the 17 lakhs extra which I'm charging is to manage the SRO or manage whatever the court. Okay, so I asked him to show the court certificate, okay, NOC from the court. He was not even willing to show that NOC. He says that we have it, but he never showed it. In fact, I asked him also many times NRI, but he never shared it with me. I think he never shared that with him. Okay. Now, just imagine 20% TDS is losing. Now, 17% flat. Okay. This agent is keeping in between. Even I am in real estate. I know how things work. Maybe 4-5 lakhs is maximum to manage both of this. Either the court or the SRO is more than enough. But he was charging almost 17 lakhs for this. Okay, and the whole of the transaction is white. Now this became a complete mess for me. Even after all this mess, my friend NRI, he was willing to go ahead with the transaction because he felt we have reached to a certain point. We have committed to the buyer. He's willing to buy the property. Already agreement has happened. Now this fellow has got an NOC which he was claiming that he has got. Now let's go and get the registration done. In fact, even I gave him a deal that you are selling at this price, I'll give you 20% extra. Give the apartment to me, I'll buy from you. Okay, and I'll sell it later to someone if I want to. Okay, but he felt that he has committed to already the buyer and he has already committed to the agent. So now he didn't want to break that. And he was already in so much mess. He thought, let me finish this. And the registration was due the other day. And that morning, the agent calls and says, sub-registrar got changed. Registration is not happening today. Shock of his life. Third time he traveled from US to India. He was ready to accept all the losses. Even after everything became black and white, TDS thing and the agent putting a lot of margin of 17 lakh rupees, still with a big heart, he was ready to go for registration. But at that last moment, agent says the SRO has changed and now he's not ready to register. Which actually meant that NOC from the court was not there. Because if you had a valid NOC from the court, no matter who the sub-registrar is, registration would have definitely happened. And this whole of this became a complete mess. And third time also, he had to travel to US without any registration. Now just think how much fuss, how much tension, how much stress, how much anxiety, how much that personal feeling of getting cheated would have happened to this, my friend NRI. Even I personally felt very bad for him because he was getting cheated from his own distant relative. So guys, if you ask me, most of us who are simple people, living a simple life, busy in our job or business, this is what we experience. Because people are so intelligent, they have this mindset of cheating you. They're always ready to think, what can I do to cheat your take money from you, steal money from you. And that's how people are. And we have to be very careful. Okay, especially if you're away from the country, if you're an NRI visiting this country once in a while, you have to be extra cautious. See, there are two learnings from this which I feel everyone should understand. One, if you stay away from city, you depend on someone to see the property. It can be a close family member, a distant family member, or a known close friend, and we trust them blindly. Okay, and we trust their opinion blindly. If sometimes I see a lot of people who visit to our project or whatever project we show, the person who wants to buy likes the property, but this family member changes their mind completely. So there can be a personal gain in his mind. Okay, so this may not be true for all cases. I completely understand, guys. Not all family members are bad. This is only 90% time it goes right. Okay, the transaction with family member, 10% time it doesn't go right. Now you have to be extra careful whom you are assigning this job to look out this property for you, how genuine that person is, and you cannot figure it out, believe me. And once things go wrong, you lose a relative for the rest of your life. Once that comes out, that he has done this for me, the whole of that relationship goes for a toss. So my suggestion is, instead of involving a family member, a distant relative, find an agent who does it purely for commission, purely for money. There is no emotions in between. You're handling a professional and you're paying for his service. At least he'll be clear upfront that this is what I want and this is what I get and this is what you get. It is a transactional relationship, okay? And that works better because you can be cutthroat with him, you can be open with him, you can talk clearly with him. When emotions get involved with relatives or distant relatives, you know what happens? You cannot say something which you want to say, feeling that they may get hurt. And sometimes they take advantage of it as well, right? So I personally feel depending overly on a relative or a distant relative or a family member or a close friend for all kind of transactions is not advisable. You find someone as an agent whom you trust, talk to him multiple times. It's a very professional and a transactional relationship. You can be clear with him, he can be clear with you. I think that's better to do. Cheated him. Basically 17 lakhs. Even if you remove 5 lakhs for managing, around 12 lakh rupees is a lot of money for one transaction. And that too when you're selling at a loss. The apartment itself was getting sold at a loss. Right? Now that's first thing. Second very important message is taxation. See, especially when you are an NRI, or even if you're not an NRI in India, when you buy and sell a property, a lot of tax, especially in NRI, a lot of tax things come into picture. Like this TDAs and long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains. So I recommend highly find an agent or maybe a chartered accountant who is expert in this. And before even thinking of selling your property, understand this laws clearly. Okay, reach out to them and understand what is that you will get and what is that you will lose. Okay, or an agent who knows this. Talk to him because he was losing 20% TDS, which could have been deducted. There were ways for it. I suggested in those ways as well. He could have registered that property on his mother's name because now she becomes an Indian resident. If the property is less than 50 lakh rupees, there is no TDS. More than 50 lakh rupees, 1% TDS. And there were ways to manage the property to show less than 50 lakh rupees because the government value was a little less there. Okay. Now there are ways to manage, a lot of ways to manage. So he could have spoken to an expert instead of depending overly on the relative, or he would have spoken to a CA who deals in this matter, who would have made him understand that these are the implications you have. So he could have handled it better before even getting that agreement of sale with that buyer. So he was losing that 20% TDS and he had to again struggle to get that back. And that stress, will I get it back? Because it goes to the government. Getting it back is not easy. You may get it, you may not get it. A lot of things comes into picture. The money which you have today is your money. Money is supposed to come in the future. We never know. It takes time. Yeah. So these two things which I learned from him, and I want you to learn from it. If you are an NRI especially, don't overly depend on relatives or a close friend. Find a professional agent who works for commission and he's transactional, no emotions involved in between. Very clear. Point number one. Okay. Point number two is when you are doing transactions, buying and selling, the tax implications clear in your head first before even you initiate the transaction so that you know what you're getting, you know what you're losing. Right, guys? I hope this video helps you. I'm sure you learned something valuable from it. Share it with someone who's an NRI who's struggling like this. Okay? And tell him that this is what you should do. Yeah, guys? So now this is the 5th video. I'll come soon in the 6th video on Real Estate Real Katahalu. Thank you so much for all your love. I'll see you soon in a new video. And before that, it takes a lot of effort, energy, time to record such videos. So please, you can do the least is liking it, commenting and sharing with your friends and family. And I'm sure you will do it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a new video. Till then, take care.